Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Inside the Pigskin. If anybody believes in Lucky Seven, you can count to seven. That's what we have tonight here on the broadcast. And coming over from baseball, doing some football, is a guy I've only known forever, KR Lombardia. Welcome to the football broadcast, KR.
Hey, Scott. I probably like college football more than I like anything else.
Well, that sounds good. You're going to fit in very, very nicely because we have a little bit of mixture of NFL and college today. Everybody knows about the trade deadline. Let me go over with the crew right to left or whatever. George Eichhorn wearing the cap. Welcome back, George.
Yeah, all treats, no tricks tonight. Happy Halloween, Scott.
There you go. And Mr. U.
Good evening. Thanks for having me back, brother. Appreciate you.
So pleasure's all mine. And Bo Crouch.
How's it going, guys?
And Coach Bono, you got somebody in there that's a fan of yours, and I got to put her up there. Here's Jennifer. Jennifer, get to know Coach Bono because that's who you're going to be paired up with next Wednesday night. And let me tell you, it's good stuff. All right. And before I get to Mel, the Back It Up Binge podcast. Don't worry. I'm glad to have you on here. We'll have a lot of binge. We'll have a lot of this. We'll have a lot of that. We're going to make it a whole lot of fun. And look at this. All right, I'll tell you, Jen, you're a hit. They call me Mr. You says, hi, Jen, look at this. All right. And look at all that. Hello, sir. My goodness. Let's keep this bad boy rolling. I have plenty of voice left tonight. All right. So that's said. Okay. We have Mel Farr back on. And Mel, welcome back, buddy.
Hey, great to be back. How's everybody doing?
Doing great. Well, we have a loaded deck tonight, and we're going to start off with the Clemson Tigers. Road to mediocrity. Daboswinney blasts critical fans because of a record that he has 4-4, set to earn close to $11.5 million this season. The team has won the last 7 ACC titles over the past 8 years, and says that his program has won so much that fans have lost an appreciation for winning. Currently tied with Frank Howard as the winningest coach in program history, sporting a 165-43 mark in his 16th year. He signed a 10-year, $115 million deal in September of 2022. That runs through 2031 season. Had 6 consecutive college football playoff appearances, 2015 to 2020, 4 national championships, 2 national titles from in 2016 and 2018. That's a lot. So I'm going to go right around the horn. I can tell you right now, I saw Daboswinney lose to the Miami Hurricanes. And I'll tell you what, for all those teams that he's running it up against, these teams don't mind getting back at him. So with that said, give me your thoughts about what's going on over in Clemson, KR.
Here's what I think about Daboswinney. I may be completely wrong. Dabo was never an offensive coordinator or a defensive coordinator. The highest job he ever had was wide receivers coach. If he doesn't have good coordinators, he's lost. Tony Elliott left, went to Virginia. What's his name? Went to South Florida. Venables, defensive coordinator, went to Oklahoma. I think that he's a good CEO. Is he a good X and O guy? I bet you at the American Football Coaches Association, he's never spoken about X's and O's. I'm one of those guys that thinks if you're not an X and O guy, you can be a CEO, but you better have damn good coordinators. And I don't think he has them anymore. He can recruit. I think he's a relentless recruiter. But if you look at the great coaches today, Nick Saban's a defensive guru. Kirbysmart's a defensive guru. I think guys like that have coached at a higher level and they've coordinated. I don't think Dabo's never coordinated. So is he a great coach? I had my doubts when he got the job. I think they give him a lot of money. I think that Clemson's got a lot of money. I think he's a great recruiter, but I don't think he's a great X and O guy. And I think you need to be a good X and O guy before you're a great coach. I may be wrong, but that's my feeling about Clemson.
Well, and you're talking about Jeff Scott, who obviously struggled at the University of South Florida, my alma mater. I will turn over to George.
Well, as far as attacking fans or critics of your program, everybody's got a short memory when you're a winning team. What have you done for us lately? So he shouldn't be totally surprised that people are upset. You know, you're sitting in 10th, 11th place in your conference, and you're sitting at 4-6. You started out bad by losing to Duke, and then you follow that up with another loss to Florida State, and like you said, Scott, the loss to Miami, and then you got another loss. So hey, listen, I'm not going to throw in the towel on Dabo-Swinney. I'm just saying that every program has a period of time where it's not the best. Did they ever think it was going to sink this low? Probably not. Those fans are used to winning. They're hungry for wins, but I'm not gonna wave the white flag. He got a lot of money, sure, but let's give this guy another chance. Obviously, it's not going to be this season, but there's more to come.
All right, before I go over to Mr. U, I want to make sure that everybody's aware off top that Inside the Pigskin is being broadcast around the world. The audio version of Inside the Pigskin can be heard on iHeartRadio, Apple, Spotify, Google, wherever you get your podcast. Please hit the red subscribe button on YouTube, South Florida Tribune. We're striving for 1,000 subscribers. Please also comment, like, and share the broadcast. Want to be a guest? No problem. Participate in the chat room. That's one way to do it. Or send your topic ideas to southfloridatribune@gmail.com. If you want to advertise cost efficiently, call me at 954-304-4941. We broadcast live on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube. Our website is www.southfloridatribune.com, Twitter/X @TribuneSouth. Candy Ebling is behind the scenes. My book is actually going to be coming out, hopefully, on Monday, and it's called Lessons from the Microphone, Tuning into the Enduring Wisdom of Visionary Leaders. Also, tomorrow night, programming note, the Motor City Mad Mouse Show debuts with George and I. And one of the things that we're going to be doing will be a one-on-one interview with people in and out of the sports world. So you can rest assured I got plenty of people on this panel that will get an invite at some point. That show will run probably around 8 o'clock on Wednesday night. So we'll keep you posted. So the Motor City Mad Mouse Show about to launch. And, of course, my book, at long last, Lessons from the Microphone, is due out in a matter of days. All right. With that said, Mr. Yu, sorry to break up. I had to make sure we get some company business in. Go ahead. We're talking Dabo. What are you dabbing about?
I'm sure I can add a whole lot to what's been said by George and KR so far. I mean, the fans are spoiled, unappreciative. That's a separate topic. I think part of the reason is that they have reason to be so. That's fans for pretty much any team that's been doing well. But I think the challenge for me, two things. One, he responded the way he did. You know, as a head coach, you know, there's a certain level of decorum you got to have. I think we've seen it across the board in the NFL and college football. There's a little bit of a little smart aleck comments and stuff, but nothing, not a 5-minute rant. So this is like boiling over. And I think I can't recall the situation, but either 3 years ago or maybe 4, he was criticized before too, and had a similar reaction to it. It's like he doesn't take criticism very well. On that team, they got four games left. They got to pay Notre Dame, Georgia Tech, North Carolina, and South Carolina. You need to focus on that because those can be a big part of how you end if you get them to a playoff, or I should say a bowl game. Excuse me. So you need to focus on those 4 games. Focus on the team. Stay off of that mic as much as possible.
Okay. All right, Bo. And just to let everybody know, Jeremy, we're going to get to the trade shortly. I want to take care of college football first. So, and Jeremy, just so you know that Mr. Yu's trying to get a hold of you. Glad you participated in here tonight. I'm sure you'll get a hold of each other soon. But Jeremy, right now, the immediate focus here is mainly to go ahead and, you know, talk about the college doing. So bear with us on that. Okay. We got a few key trades. All right. I'll turn it over to Bo.
Yeah, so I mean, everybody's mostly hit that. I mean, one of the things is he definitely needs to be able to take criticism a little bit better, but he also has to understand the situation that coaching isn't what it used to be, and loyalty is not there. These schools, similar to the NFL, they are fine with eating a coach's contract to get you out of the building if you're not winning. So, I mean, it's something he does need to worry about. But I mean, as far as this season goes, I don't think they get rid of him this year. So he definitely needs to focus on getting into a bowl game, because even if you're not in the national title conversation, if you're in a bowl game, your alma mater is still pretty happy about having a primetime game. So there's some things he needs to look at here in the short term, but I mean, he does have to worry a little bit, because whether it's the NFL or college, they will move on if you have a couple of losing seasons in a row.
Coach Bono.
Man, a lot of great points brought up. I'll just say this, you know, I think that, you know, Dabo's obviously he's he's had some great success there, some unprecedented success. So you have to give him credit for that. I think what's going on right now is probably systemic of a lot of different things. As KR mentioned, I think, the coordinators, he's changed those around. But I'd also take a look at, their recruiting and the evaluation and player development. I think that, all of those things come into play. He won 2 national championships because he had a generational player at quarterback, right? I mean, and those guys don't come on around very often. Well, look at, what Alabama has been able to do is they've always been able to find the next guy up. I mean, how many Alabama quarterbacks are starting in the NFL? So somewhere along there, in the evaluation process, I mean, I learned this, you have to do your own evaluations. You have to, be able to project. You can't just, look at rivals or, 360 and say, oh, this guy's, a 5-star. I'm going to go grab him. There's no guarantee that that's going to, always transition over to the college game. So I would say it's a combination of that. The fans, they obviously they've got a right to be upset, and the fact that they are upset is a testament to what he's been able to achieve there. So he's got to swallow that, as Mr. Yu said. He's got to, can't be sensitive, and he's just got to keep pushing forward. But somewhere along the line, he's got to figure out what, where the breakdowns are, where, what the inconsistencies are, and then make the necessary changes so that they can get back on top.
Okay, Mel, you round out the topic, and I'll have 1 or 2 things to say, and then we'll continue on. We have a busy show tonight, folks. We got a lot of college football, and we're going to summarize some trades. So go ahead, Mel.
Yeah, I think you guys make a lot of great points. Dabo, he wasn't very humble when he was on top, and he's got he had thin skin then, and he has thin skin now. I think he was, he felt like somebody was always out to get him when he was on top, and he kind of approached things that way, kind of talked to the media that way. And now things aren't going well. It's starting to bother him as some of his insecurities. And I don't think that you have to be a great coordinator to be a head coach. I think you just have to be a great leader of men. And I think he was able to do that the years that they were successful. The guys were listening to him and they were buying into his message. And then again, like Coach Bono said, he had a couple generational talents at the quarterback position, and that helps a whole lot. And he had a lot of talent. Like Troy Aikman said about Bill Parcells. I mean, they're in the talent acquisition business, and you have to have talent in order to win this game. It's not about Dabo. And I think Dabo lost sight of that a little bit, and thinking that this was about him. It's not about him. It's about the players. And he's got to get some horses out there. You can't ride a donkey in the Kentucky Derby. It's not gonna work. You can't get on a mule. You got to get yourself a thoroughbred. So he has to get back to the roots, to what made that program successful when nobody knew who Dabo was, didn't know how to pronounce his name, and get back to that and getting that talent and building that program up again from the inside out and going out there and finding himself a quarterback. That's what I think he needs to do. I think he just lost sight of the mission there for a moment and thought this was really about him.
Mel, you've been hanging around me too darn long, pal, because I always use donkey and mule in the Kentucky Derby. Now you So, all right, let me just set a couple people straight here. Number one, Dabo Swinney was king of the castle, and everybody was a dirty rascal when he won his 2 national championships. Oh, I can go ahead and dictate college football playoff, blah, blah. Get out of here. I don't want to hear that, Dabo. Now, all of a sudden, we reel you back in the middle of the pack. You'd be lucky that there is 12 or maybe 16 of them in there. My goodness, okay? And number two, when I was covering the Miami-Clemson game a couple of weeks out, this guy had the nerve a year ago to throw a passing play with like 16 under 20 seconds to score another 7 points. And mariocristobal never forgot that either. So I think when we ended up beating Clemson, okay, Dabo, just because you're running it up one year, paybacks are unfortunately what you're going to end up getting from a lot of your opponents that you stuck it to before. So, Dabo, when the time comes that you think you're the king of the castle and everybody's a dirty rascal, then that thing called humble pie doesn't taste very good. And right now you're eating a lot of it. I understand that the fans are upset with you. Well, you know what? You raise the standard for that program, and nobody's running you out the door yet. I mean, your administration seemed fine. They wouldn't have paid you that amount of money in the first place. Now it's just a matter of trying to go out there and achieve some sort of humility and get it figured out. All right, we have a lot to talk about. I knew this topic was going to take a lot more time, so we're going to move through the other ones. Is college football better when the Miami Hurricanes are winning? Obviously, they're 6-2 right now. I saw them beat Virginia in double overtime. In fact, the last two games over at Hard Rock Stadium, I've seen them win double overtime. I believe like the Miami Hurricanes are the equivalent to the Detroit Red Wings in a sense, because NHL to me is better when the Detroit Red Wings are winning, and the Canes have 5 national titles, and they produced a ton of NFL players. And I know, K. Lombardi, you like to talk about the Canes, so I'll let you go ahead.
I think that Mario, I think if he can't do it, I don't think it will be done. But I think they need to go back to the state of Miami and draw a line at Interstate 4 and not let anybody get out of those 3. There's more blue chippers in Dade, Broward, and Palm Beach County than there is in the state of Alabama, Mississippi, and Arkansas. And if they can just lock those guys up, they should win national championships. That's what Schnellenberger did. And I think they got to do that. I was very disgusted when I saw them lose the other day. I'm a little bit of a Miami Hurricane fan. I have been since I was a little kid with George Myra. And I've always wanted them to do well. I loved it when they won all those national titles. And they did it by keeping kids at home and then going to Dallas. They've had a connection in Dallas for some years. I don't know how. They've got some great players out of there. But once they do that, I think they're going to be fine. I just can't believe they had to go to double overtime with Virginia. They got much more talent than that. But they should be – I always thought Miami should be one of the top 3 every year. I mean, regardless. They should never really be able to – they should never have to rebuild. They should reload. Okay. And, the football down there, guys, if you've never seen Miami and Broward and Palm Beach County football high school, you would be shocked at the talent at that level.
Yeah, well, obviously, Howard Schnellenberger, KR, as you alluded to, saved this program from going under. I know Lou Saban had a lot to do about Howard Schnellenberger. Finished the job. Now, George, I know you're not familiar with it, other than what I've told you, but are the Miami Hurricanes, can you see the comparison between the Red Wings and the Canes on a national level, that both sports are better because of both?
I mean, Miami especially had that great rivalry with Notre Dame all those years, and they've had great teams over the years. I have to agree. I've never thought about it as you did, Scott, but there's something to be said about that. I mean, I think when they're successful, I mean, college football has taken sort of a love-hate relationship with a lot of its teams, college football fans, but they're sitting there at 6-2. They lost those 2 games back-to-back, I believe. What was it, Georgia Tech and North Carolina?
Right.
Yeah, and now I'm looking at their schedule. They got NC State, Florida State, which is obviously number 4 in the country, and then a tough Louisville team, and then they close with Boston College. So, no, I think that they're doing a good job this year, coaching-wise, player-wise, and it is exciting to see them, make their way. They're kind of stuck right in the middle of that ACC standings board right now. So obviously it's going to be difficult for them to move up, but hey, they finish with, if they can win out, and that's a possibility, they're going to get a real nice bowl bid. That's for darn sure.
Well, I'll just say this much before I turn over to Mr. U. Number one, all I have to do is look at that schedule, and it's always a TBD until I find out it's at 8:00. And when you get to an 8:00 game, you're not home until 12, 2 o'clock in the morning. Coach Bono knows. I mean, it's like after a game, and I find myself where my body clock is all messed up because of it, but I have no complaints. And for the rest of the year, by the way, I have this weekend off because they're at NC State, but I'll be up in Tallahassee for the Florida State game and the Louisville. But no, I'm not going up to Boston. It's all right. But like I said before, the Red Wings get on national TV despite being rebuilding, and national TV is looking for an excuse to put the Canes on at night. I know it. My body tells me that. And let me tell you, and my parking pass does too when I get it. All right, Mr. U, I'm turning it over to you.
I might have to bow out of this one. I mean, Major League Baseball, I think it's better when the Yankees are winning. I think in the NBA is better when the Knicks are winning, which two things aren't happening right now. But I heard a lot about the Hurricanes, especially coming up in the 80s and the early 90s. The Hurricanes were always a talk, and they had all the players like Michael Irvin and so many other names coming out of there. Honestly, though, I don't know if it makes it better because they're winning. I mean, Miami is a tough place only because it feels like there's a lot of distractions, if you know what I mean, in Miami. A lot of reasons to not focus on football and things like that. What happened to the Miami Marlins? Look what happened to them. They couldn't get anybody to come to the games. You know why? So many other fun things to do, distractions in Miami. People who are serious about football, they may not want to go to Miami because of that kind of stuff. They go to a place where maybe in the Bible Belt, somewhere where they focus on football only and not the other distractions. So I don't know. I mean, I think hearing the Hurricanes' name and them winning is a good thing. Cristobal got a good chance of making that happen. Their schedule is not super heavy. They got Florida State, Louisville, Boston College, and I think NC State, which is not going to be a cakewalk by any stretch of the imagination. But he does really good in November. I think he's like 3-1 in November with Oregon and Alabama, before they were winning a lot. He was 15-1 out there as an assistant. So I don't know, guys. I like hearing Hurricanes' name in contention and winning games. I think it's great, but it's better for football. I don't know.
Well, you already said you knew. All right, we'll leave it at that. All right, Poe.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a ton to add to that. I mean, anytime you have a storied franchise or schools, it's better if they're relevant, right? It's good for the sport. It's good for viewing. I mean, that's kind of it, right? I mean, you want those schools that have been some of the pillars in college football to be relevant. And so it's nice to see them kind of coming back. They obviously don't have the easiest schedule to close out, but they definitely have a bowl game in their future, I would think.
What do you think, Coach?
Well, I think it'd be easier to cheer for them if they learn how to take a knee at the end of games, close out a game.
Don't do that to me. I had to live for that. Seriously.
I mean, facts. But yeah, I mean, it's a traditional football program. Love to see them do well. Mr. Yu made great points. KR made some great points about the recruiting, because really, in all honesty, there's a lot of reasons why Miami is a hard job. It's a private school, very, hard, tough academic standards. So they don't. It's expensive school. They don't get a lot of walk-ons there.
Right.
They don't have an on-campus stadium. Their fan base is really, people that never went to Miami. And to Mr. Yu's point, in Miami, there are so many things to do.
Right.
You got the Dolphins, you have a hockey team, you got a basketball team, you got baseball, you have, the Hurricanes. It's a tough place to get it done. But yeah, I think college football is better when Miami's winning. I think college football is better when Notre Dame is good. I think college football is better when USC and UCLA are relevant. I think college football is better this year because of what Deion has brought to Colorado and the excitement that has revolved around that. So there's my 2 cents.
No, that's good. Yeah, I'll say Michigan too, even though everybody's giving them a hard time, but we'll leave it alone. All right, Mel.
Yeah, I don't know if college football is necessarily better. I mean, back in the late 80s, mid 80s, late 90s, Miami, where they were bold, they were brash, they were boisterous, they were loud, and they were good. And they were entertaining to watch. There was something different from what we have normally seen from college football programs. And especially with that rivalry that they had with Notre Dame. The media did a great job with those storylines, and they had a coach, Jimmy Johnson, who was, he was different. He was a character, and people were attracted to that, similar to the way they are with Deion. I mean, people are attracted to him and the things they say. They're just waiting for what is he going to say next. I mean, UCLA had 71,000 fans out there to see a Colorado team that was 3-4-3 at the time, I think it was, and UCLA, I think they've only lost 2 games. They might have been 4-2. So, but they had a sold out Rose Bowl, which they haven't had in some time. And it wasn't because they were out there to see UCLA or Chip Kelly. I can assure you of that. It was they were there because they were there to see Deion. So, those stories make for great college football. Those storylines make for great college football. Like Coach was talking about, the storyline now with Colorado makes for great college football. But yeah, it's nice when they're relevant because it gives, for such a long time, Clemson has been dominating the ACC. We need some other things going on in the ACC. And now teams are starting to step up a little bit in the ACC. North Carolina, although, they've had a tough couple of weeks, they're playing better football. I mean, Virginia's done knocked off a couple folks or got real close to knocking off somebody. I think they beat North Carolina, I believe, or they beat somebody. And, they're not a very good football team. North Carolina State's a tough out. Duke has been a tough out. So, Georgia Tech's been a tough out. So it's good. It's good to see some of these other programs stepping up, and there's some parity. The problem now with Miami back then, they were doing things and they were able to get away with it. Well, the playing field, when the playing field was supposed to be level, the playing field's not level now. It's the haves and the have-nots. And if you don't have big money and you can't get the horses, it's going to be very difficult for you to compete.
Okay, let's go into some NFL stuff here. Bo, is there something you wanted to add to it?
What's that?
Was there something you wanted to add? Anybody before we go to the NFL?
Oh, nope.
Okay, all right. Let's talk about a few trades. 49ers acquired Chase Young from the Commanders for a 3rd-round pick. Young obviously is on an expiring contract. He joins Nick Bosa, former Ohio State University Buckeye. But let me go over the defense that the 49ers are now going to have. You're going to have Talanoa Hufanga, who's a 1-time All-Pro, Fred Warner, a 2-time All-Pro, Nick Bosa, obviously the 2022 Defensive Player of the Year. Of course, John Lynch is the mastermind behind it all. We know Chase Young, obviously 2020 Defensive Rookie of the Year. Javon Hargrove, 1-time Pro Bowl, and Eric Armstead, 31 career sacks. Boy, I'll tell you one thing about the 49ers, okay? You add Chase Young to that defense, and they're looking awfully good, right, Carol Lombardia?
Yeah, they are there. I think they and the Eagles are probably the 2 best teams in the NFL at this point. I think Philadelphia is much more physical than they are. I think that with Brock Purdy at quarterback, they have a chance. The 49ers have a chance all the time. But my money's on the Eagles at this point. But you never know. Once you get to the playoffs, anything can happen. But the 49ers have strengthened themselves defensively, and they're going to be a team to be reckoned with. But again, like baseball, we got 2 wild card teams, so you never know.
Right. Fair enough. Okay, George.
Well, I'm not surprised that this happened, but I am a bit disappointed as I cover the Lions. A lot of people here in Detroit are wondering, why the Lions. Now they signed a wide receiver. We'll get to that later, but they did not improve the defensive line, to try to give Hutchinson some help in that defensive line. And I applaud San Francisco for making this move and signing Chase Young. That gives them Bosa and Young and the other cast that you mentioned, Scott. And, this guy can really help them out. They've been kind of underachieving defensively, I felt, the 49ers. And now that they've got Chase Young in the picture, in the fold, boy, oh boy, they are going to be tough to beat. I mean, it's going to be a real dogfight. I mean, you got KR, you mentioned about Philadelphia, of course, San Francisco, and then you got Detroit and Dallas right up there, I feel. So it's going to be a very fun time the rest of this season. But hats off to the 49ers, a guy that many felt the Lions should have signed.
Yeah, like Jeremy alluded, good trade for the 49ers, no doubt about that. All right, Mr. Yu.
Well, if you're a player in San Francisco or in most places, well, in Washington specifically, you can't trust ownership. And they said, you know what, if you look at this past game, weekend, I think it was, they're going to trade either Sweat or Young. Dude, trade both of them. Can't trust anybody, can you? But I think the big concern for me was Young's injury history. It's been a big concern since he was in college, too. But him being on a rental, I guess it's not going to be a big concern for the Niners. They can use him however they want to and then let him hit free agency or whatever. it's just kind of unfair that these guys can just get this talent. The Eagles are in that same place with me, but it's not anyway. These guys over there had Randy Gregory, who's doing pretty good considering. Drake Johnson's been invisible for the past 5 games. I don't know where he's going off to. He'll come back at some point. Cleveland Farrell's out there. He's doing really good in the spot. Joey Bosa. Now you're going to add Chase Young. It's like, wow. These guys are going to be monsters back there. It's like, it just ain't right, man. But I'm happy for them because the Niners, like George said, they should be one of the top teams. Me and Bo were talking about it Monday morning. I don't know if they're going to do that without Debo being back for a long period of time. I'm not sure when his return is, if he's coming back at all. But if he doesn't come back or come back really late, it's going to be tough for them because they've been struggling without him, stretching the field. It's been rough. Ayuk's been doing the work, but it's not the same as Debo. It's kind of been showing in these losses they had piled up. But good for the Niners and getting Young, man. Great move there for a 3rd-round pick at that. So fantastic.
I want to put this comment up because this probably should answer your reason why, George, they didn't get it. Jeremy makes an excellent point. 49ers at $47 million in cap space. Lions at $6.3 million. Is the difference? That's a bullseye, Jeremy. That's all I'll say about it. All right, go ahead, Bo.
Yeah, I mean, obviously this is a good pickup for them. It strengthens that line a little bit. Although I really would have thought they would have been targeting an offensive lineman to help out a little bit. Instead of defense. I mean, their defense was pretty solid anyway. But I mean, you got Young paired up with Bosa. Like that is going to be a problem for anybody that comes against it.
Coach.
Man, I think Chris Kasarik and Daryl Tapp, the 2 D-line coaches in San Fran, they just hit the equivalent of the lotto, right? These guys, I mean, everybody here has hit on it. Those guys are a handful when you only have one of those guys. Like you play the Raiders, you better know where Max Crosby's at. You better have a plan for him. You can't put a back on him. You got to chip him. You got to do that with Bosa. You have to do that with. Now you have 2 of those guys and 1 on each side. I mean, they're going to wreak havoc. The ball better come out quickly, and. I mean, it's a great move for them. I'm surprised that they had that much cap space. That's, I'm shocked by that. But, man, I think it's a great move for the 49ers. I'm happy for those guys.
Mel?
Well, Coach, let's not put him in the Max Crosby conversation. I haven't seen that from Chase Young. Max Crosby is on a whole nother level.
Bosa's in that category.
Bosa's in that category. The thing with, you're talking about the 2 guys with Chase Young and Montez Sweat. I mean, it was the worst kept secret that one of them or both of them were going to be dealt. And it was primarily because Washington didn't want to pay those guys. They've got new ownership there and they're going to clean house. Typically you get rid of the coach and then they get rid of the players. They're getting rid of players now and they're going to get rid of the coach probably at the end of the year. And they're going to clean house. They're going to start fresh with their people. Chase Young looks good getting off the bus. I mean, he looks the part. There's no question about it. I mean, man, the guy's got a body that's out of this world. But can he get it done consistently on a consistent basis? We haven't seen that. That's why they didn't pick up his 5th-year option over there in Washington. They wanted to see more from him. And we know that the Niners are on a 3-game skid here. And defensively, they're one of my defenses that I had in the fantasy, and I've sat them the past couple of weeks because they have not been performing. Okay, so they haven't been doing well for me. So I've watched them very closely, and it was funny. They were talking to Kyle Shanahan yesterday, and they said that their answers were in the locker room. All their answers were in the locker room, but yet they go out and acquire a talent. Again, we're in the talent acquisition business. They acquire talent. Now, just because you acquire this talent doesn't necessarily mean it's going to pan out. So we'll have to see. They'll have an opportunity to keep guys fresh. There will be no reason for anybody dogging it because they have plenty of guys that go in there and rush the passer if they find themselves in a situation where they have to do that, where they're up, where they have a lead and they can pin their ears back and they get after the quarterback. So it should be interesting to see how this plays out down the stretch.
Well, I'll tell you how this is going to play out. You ready? Steve Wilkes is probably on the hottest seat on the planet, the defensive coordinator. And I know that Kyle Shanahan, from what I heard, is probably going to take away play calling responsibilities, is what I've read up on this. So, Steve Wilkes,
take away play calling responsibility from who?
Well, Steve Wilkes calling defensive.
He can't call defensive plays.
Why not?
Shanahan?
No, I said Wilkes. Wasn't he Steve Wilkes? Whatever. The bottom line is Steve Wilkes is going to be under fire if he can't work with this group. So
they need to score some points.
Well, that too. But
stop turning the ball over.
What's that?
They need to score points and stop turning the ball over, putting the defense in bad position.
Yeah, but I hear there's been a little bit of tension here, and it's okay to agree and disagree here between Wilkes and Shanahan. So we'll see how it plays out with the way these trades are.
I don't have that high of opinion of Shanahan. Very high.
Well, there you go. Now I know. Now we know where it's coming. You don't have that much of a high opinion of Shanahan. Now he says it out there, Mr. Mule, Mr. Donkey, whatever. I don't have a high opinion of Shanahan.
Well, I think he's arrogant. That's all.
All right. Well, that's okay. Of course, he was in your neck.
I think he's a front runner.
Okay. Now it all comes out with Mr. Farr, a Mel too far here against Shanahan. All right, let's go back to the chat room a little bit and spice up some information. All right, let's go ahead. All right, Sweat having his worst year statistically, lowest pressure rate. I think the Bears gave up too much second round pick. I do too, but desperate on them by the Monsters of Midway to get enough cap space. Just clarifies your thing, George. The fans wanted it in Detroit. It would have taken restructuring of Decker and Rags to clear enough space.
I don't question anything the guys in Detroit are doing. What they've done thus far is good. They decided to stand pat. Hey, they know what they have in the locker room. And Dan Campbell said it. I mean, they have to fit in the locker room too. It's not just about the talent. They have to fit in the locker room. That was one of the things that they were talking about yesterday on Monday Night Football.
Yeah,
he's very, very big about that. That's true.
Right. And Chase Young has more time on the IR than on the field. Yeah, I think we pretty much have already drawn that conclusion. So let's continue on here. I'll put one more comment up before we go on to the next one. Just, following Inside the Pick 108 Stitches Baseball Talk follows. Biggest question is how after 5 games, Brock Purdy went from looking like Brady type of a quarterback to looking like PTSD Carson Wentz. All right.
Wow, man.
Well, you're getting a little severe here, Jeremy? Okay. All right, let's go on to the Minnesota Vikings before Jeremy hits me with something else, and I have to respond to that. All right, he's doing good, though. Rapid fire keeps it all interesting. Minnesota Vikings acquire quarterback Joshua Dobbs, okay, and I'll tell you what the compensation is. The Vikings get Joshua Dobbs in a 2024 7th-round pick. The Cardinals get a 2024 6th-round pick. So obviously we know that's insurance because of the injury that Kirkcousins had. So, all right, KR Lombardi, what's your take on this trade? Where, if nothing else, Dobbs might be a backup, but probably a really good insurance policy.
So Kyler Murray's ready to come back? That's my question.
Getting close.
He must be because Dobbs has started the last few games. Now all of a sudden he's going to Minnesota. Wow.
Yeah.
I'm a little surprised at that. I don't know if Kyler Murray's ready.
They're going to bench him and start the rookie.
Yeah, Dobbs got bench. I think they were going to go with it.
He said he went 100% for 2 practices. He was 100%, but he didn't start.
Murray is?
Yeah. Okay. So I have some question about that one myself. I think we'll be traded because
when I saw him at Tennessee, I thought he threw funky. I didn't like his motion. Being an ex-quarterback coach, I look at, the way you throw the ball, your form, and I never thought he threw the ball real well. But he's fooled me because he's been somewhat successful in the NFL, and I never thought he had a chance.
That was a pre-draft critique. The same thing.
Let's go around the horn.
There you go. All right, George, give me your take about Dobbs throwing the
Dobbs is not going to bring them to the promised land. I mean, he's steady and he's decent, but obviously they are in a big hurt. Minnesota losing Cousins. Cousins was having a very good year, and I know they only had 500, but he had been playing some really good football, especially lately, and that's a huge blow to the Vikings. But being fair to Joshua Dobbs, I mean, the Vikings had to make a move. They had to get somebody with some experience. The kid's 28 years old. You guys mentioned, obviously, came from a good program in Tennessee. And he's had, statistics that are okay, but but again, he hasn't been playing as much as Cousins has. But I don't know. I mean, I wish the guy very well, but it's going to be tough to replace all that offense that Cousins generated.
Yeah, all right. Well, let's go back. Jeremy's at it again. He's providing some more info, better than Jaron Hall. The Saints could have dumped Winston to the Vikes, but asked too much draft compensation. I wouldn't be surprised. Okay, continue on, Mr. U.
Yeah, I'm probably going to end up punting here. I mean, that was a rough spot because I'm pretty sure the Vikes were thinking about trying to make a move with Cousins during this trade deadline. As soon as that ankle happened, that was a wrap. And they got real desperate real fast. I don't think like the kid from I think the kid that Jeremy mentioned, Hall. I don't think they cared for him that much. Or they probably when they made this move for Dobbs. But Dobbs is, like George said, he's serviceable. I mean, he didn't do great in Arizona, but I saw some flashes of some competency there for the most part. But is it going to help the Vikings continue to go deep into a potential playoff run? Yeah, I don't think so. So I think they're kind of putting on the season without saying it and being honest about it.
Okay, Bo.
Yeah, I mean, they had to make a move because if you remember, Nick Mullins, their backup, went on IR with a back injury also like 2 weeks ago. So, I mean, they were looking at a quarterback room, didn't have anybody in it. You're going to sign the peanut guy or something. So they had to go get somebody's quarterback. Dobbs gives you an average arm, average completion percentage. So they look at going through this season, probably, having a decent draft pick, which is what it was going to be as soon as Cousins went down anyway. So they had to get someone in the room, and, Dobbs made sense for them. And I do believe Kyler Murray's supposed to be ready to go, but I think they were benching Dobbs anyway.
Yeah, exactly. They were.
Yeah.
So he became expendable. So at that point, Bo, you are right. You might as well get something for him, for a guy that was going to be sitting on the bench being third string. Great point, Bo. All right, Coach.
Yeah, I mean, not a whole lot to add here. It's a stopgap move. Obviously, look, the Vikings are 4-4 with Kirk Cousins, right? Arizona's 1-7. Everybody in that division's playing for second place, hoping to get in the playoffs in a wild card spot, because Detroit, unless they screw it up, is going to win that division running away. They're gonna play at home. They're going to have a playoff game at home, for the first time in 9 million years. So they had to do something to try to, they probably got maybe the best option that was available out there to try to help salvage what's left of the season.
Great point. All right, Mel.
Yeah, well, I mean, Minnesota had to do something. We knew they were going to do something when Kirk Cousins went down. Everybody thought it was going to be Jameis Winston, which it could have possibly been maybe if Joshua Dobbs didn't get was going to be benched in favor for the rookie over there and Kyler Murray getting ready to come back. So they still think they have an opportunity. They want to try to there's windows that you have in this league. Obviously, Kirk is not going to be back anytime soon. Dobbs has not been all that successful as far as wins and losses over there in Arizona, but he's serviceable, and they feel that he can maybe get him to the playoffs. I'm sure he's not going to go on a run and take him through the playoffs into the Super Bowl,
right?
But he can be respectable. He's been around the league for a long time, extremely smart guy, and I think it was a wise move on their part to try to get somebody in there. I think they may have been able to. Jameis Winston, I'm not saying that he's necessarily better. We know what Jameis Winston is, a turnover machine. So that would have been very, very difficult for the fan base to deal with. And I'm sure it would have been very difficult for the coach as well. I think the coach probably thinks that Joshua Dobbs is somebody that he can relate with, that he can coach up, and they can go out there and steal a few games, and who knows, make a run.
Yeah, the only thing I'll add to it.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, Winston actually would have made more sense than I thought, because the Vikings love turning the ball over.
Oh, gosh.
That's funny.
You know what? Let's got a question. Scott, check this out.
Yeah.
Some teams were reaching out to Washington for Jacoby Brissett, right? Do you guys think that the Vikes could have got him for the same compensation
as Dobbs?
No,
yeah, for like
I would call that a coin toss, to be honest with you. I mean, the compensation that you're talking about in this trade are late round picks. You know, way, you know how I define this trade as a everything to gain, nothing to lose because of the low round picks. You know, it's not like you're with Joshuadobbs, you're bringing in a mega superstar quarterback. All you have is an insurance policy, and then wag that tail with a couple late round picks and see what happens. Although we can't underestimate the significance of how late round picks perform, 6 and 7, and Brock Purdy's a classic example. Tom Brady, and the list goes on and on. So, I think when you break down this trade for the Vikings, it is an everything to gain, nothing to lose situation, and nothing more than just an insurance policy to get experience in that quarterback room and nothing else. That's, unless you guys beg to differ, I don't know. That's the best answer I can give you, Mr. U.
Well, what are the chances of a backup or a guy that like a Joshuadobbs getting traded? You lose your starting quarterback, your chances of making the playoffs are very slim. The days of Earl Morrall backing up Johnny Unitas and taking the Super Bowl are over.
Right.
You don't see that anymore. I mean, I'm old, guys. I know. I remember that.
That was a long time ago.
That's a long time. You don't
Kurt
see that
Warner
very
either.
often.
Yeah, but don't forget Kurt Warner did pretty well himself.
That's right.
Yeah, for Trent Green. Yeah, he was an oddity. But those days are it's very odd to see.
Tom Brady.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, just took Bledsoe getting hurt.
Yeah, Bledsoe getting hurt was the greatest thing in the world for the Patriots.
Yeah, I'm sure. Oh yeah, we could do a whole show on that one.
But it's very rare. Very rare.
But that's the best answer I
I
can.
feel like they really didn't want to try to make a go with this. They got these guys. I mean, Jefferson's going to be coming back at some point in time soon. Addison's still running out there. They got Hawkinson to throw to. You guys are just throwing in the towel because that's what it kind of feels like with that. If you get Brissett, I mean, they got 2 fifths in next year's draft. If that's what we're going to take, it can't take more than a fifth to get a Brissett from Washington. I just can't see it. So you really just got Dobbs. You know what? We kind of cashing our chips in. We kind of giving up for the season. And I think they got the 4th round pick, I think, in the draft next year. I think they have the 4th or the 5th. They're going to get a quarterback here. What's going to happen? So it just kind of feels like they just punched in the season by doing that. They could have got a better backup than what they got.
I agree. And listen, Mr. U, Jacoby Brissett's made a nice living as a journeyman backup quarterback, and he's a pretty good one.
He doesn't cost much either. He's inexpensive.
And Mr. U, the difference in talent from the starter to a backup is, it's huge, and that's what most teams, because they don't want to have that guy, that the starter constantly looking over his shoulder, thinking that he's going to get pulled real quickly every time he throws an interception or makes a mistake out there. So the talent, the gap between the talent is so wide that on any one of these teams, I don't care. I mean, it's difficult, and for them to try to find somebody. Now, I'm not saying that Kirk Cousins is the greatest thing since sliced bread, but he's a serviceable quarterback. I mean, the guy's got guaranteed contracts for the last 5 or 6 years or whatever. Was the first one to get a fully guaranteed contract. So obviously somebody thinks that he can play in this league, and you think about it. He's still playing. He was drafted in the 3rd or 4th round. Robert Griffin III was drafted number 2 overall, and Robert Griffin III is he's commenting on games, and Kirk Cousins is still out there drawing a paycheck,
right?
A hefty paycheck.
Good point. Mr. U, that was a good point. Last subject, and what we're going to do tonight, though, is this, okay? Mel's going to have an opportunity. I know Bo's got something that he wants to mention. I know Mr. U has to go shortly, so why don't we do this? Okay, Lions acquire wide receiver Donovan Peoples-Jones, former Michigan Wolverine, from Cleveland for a 2025 6th-round pick. Detroit native, Michigan is going home. So why don't everybody go out there and just give me a quick comment about this move for the Lions? KR?
Don't know enough about it, Scott.
Okay. Fair enough. Okay. I know one that does, George Eichhorn.
Well, good kid. He had a great prep career here in Detroit, played for the University of Michigan. Wasn't what I would call a superstar at U of M, but he put up some really decent numbers. I'm very happy with this decision for the Lions to get us some more receiving depth. Marvin Jones is gone for the year, and they had a vacancy there that they wanted to fill. And Peoples-Jones is, again, he's not a 1-2, but he's a good solid number 3, I'd say, at the wide receiver position. So I think it was a good move for them.
Mr. U?
He's a Michigan Wolverine, baby. I'm so happy for him. If I can throw the ball to him. Had a P.J. Walker. So I'm glad he's out there because I can throw the ball to him, get production, kind of lengthen his career. I'm happy for him. Go blue, baby. I love it.
Look at this guy. All right. Look at that. Make sure Bruce Monty knows that Mr. U is a fan over there.
Yeah.
There you go. Mr. U, meet Mr. Mate. Okay, we'll talk about stories about Bruce, who is in my book, by the way. All right, Bo.
Yeah, I mean, I like him as a slot receiver addition for that Lions team. That is a great fit. So, I mean, is he somebody that's going to tear the top off? No, but does he run a nice route and create separation? Absolutely, he's that guy. So you got a guy in Goff that can really throw a nice precision ball. He'll be able to find him.
Coach Bono.
I like it. Another big body receiver. Donovan Peoples-Jones went to Cas Tech, which is a powerhouse in Detroit, and they've got a ton of talent there. Every year, national recruit, could have gone really anywhere in the country. Good kid, good family. Tried to recruit him before he got too big, but I'm happy for him. I'm happy for the Lions. It's a win-win.
Okay, Mel.
Yeah, big time recruit out of the Detroit area. They say he's the best wide receiver since Charles Rogers. People remember who Charles Rogers was in high school. I certainly do. I like it. Again, your talent acquisition business. They did have a roster opening there because of Marvin Jones deciding to step away from football. I think it's great. The one thing about Jameson Williams is, he has a problem hanging onto the ball and catching the ball right now. I know there's a lot of upside to him, but he's got to start holding on to the ball when he gets his opportunity. So I think it's good. I think it's great. Low cost, low risk, and I guarantee it'll pay dividends. And I remember watching him in college, and I was impressed with him in college while I was watching him. While he was at Michigan. So I think it's a great pickup for him.
So here are the numbers on him now that you mentioned that. 2022, he had 61 catches, 839 yards, and 3 touchdowns. All I'll say is I don't doubt anything that Bradholmes does, so I like the move, and I'll leave it at that. All right. So, but that said, Bo, you said you had a topic you wanted to bring up. Go right ahead.
Just in the trade realm, the Hawks pick up another defensive lineman, Leonard Williams, from Mr. U's Giants, and they didn't really have to give up crazy amounts of stuff for him. They gave up a 2nd and a 5th, and then the Giants are actually paying his salary. But he's going to come in and be paired up with the return of Frank Clark. So all of a sudden, the front of this Seattle defense looks very different.
Okay. Anybody else want to add anything? Mel, you have something you want to add today?
No, I'm good today.
Okay. Anybody else? I know it's been a busy day for everyone here. Anybody watch the wire services, Mr. Hughes?
Well,
anything
but Scott, don't forget we got a game in Germany, and don't forget it's going to be a darn good one too. So there'll be a lot of fun watching that game Sunday morning in Germany, Kansas City and Miami.
Right. Okay. Very good. All right, Mr. Hughes, anything you want to add?
Just an underrated signing by the Falcons, Kentavious Street. Not going to hear his name a whole lot prior to now because the Eagles were already loaded. That was a big move by the Falcons because they needed help with the pass rush. They were like, that way they ranked pass rush wise, but Grady Jarrett went out with ACL, so they needed help. And Kentavious Street is probably a really good solution to their problem. So watch out for that guy.
Will Levis look good in his first start?
Will Levis looked fantastic. Was it 4 touchdowns?
That's surprising to me.
Yeah, he looked great.
Very surprising.
Yeah, he really did look fantastic. That's for sure. So
Very good.
So I know. So with that said, okay, Mr. U's got to go. So before you take off, why don't you let everybody know how they can get a hold of you, Mr. U?
We're on Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook. Also on LinkedIn at They Call Me Mr. U. Thank you again for having me on your show, guys, and chatting with you guys. You guys are awesome.
We'll see you next Tuesday, Mr. U. Same place, same station. All right. See you. Have a great week. See you next Tuesday. All right. Thanks.
Take it easy, bud.
So now there are 6, and we have 3 and 3 for each role. With that said, okay, we're going to let everybody have an opportunity to find out. Just so you once again, that 108 stitches Baseball Talk follows Inside the Pigskin. K.R. Lombardia and George Eichhorn will be joining me over there. We have another young guy named Jake Walker who's new to the network, so he'll be on there as well. So, K.R., why don't you let everybody know how they get a hold of you?
On Facebook under that name. That's Instagram. That's about it.
Okay, George?
You can get a hold of me on the South Florida Tribune. I write under the Motor City Tribune website. And talking about a book, I have a book out there called Detroit Sports Broadcasters on the Air. And there's a nice handy link at the end of my column. If you'd be interested in purchasing a copy of it, that'll link you right to that. You can reach me at geichhorn@yahoo.com and George Eichhorn on LinkedIn and Sand G Sports 99 on Twitter.
Okay,
You can
Mel?
find me on this show and many other shows. Thanks, Scott.
Okay, Mel?
Find me on all the social media channels at Mel Farr Jr. You can follow what we have going on for the youth at melfarr.org.
All right, we'll turn it over to Bo.
Yeah, so you can find me right here. You can also find me on my channel at Football-Talk, on Twitter, Football Talk with Bo, and of course on Thursday and Friday mornings on Roku TV.
And last but not least, the coach. And before we log off, I want to go over our information one more time about the book. But go ahead, Coach.
Yeah, you can find me right here. Friday night, I'll be in Bradenton watching IMG. And, man, I'm on LinkedIn. But outside of that, good luck.
Yeah, you can find him at a football game near you. All right. So with that said, I want one more time, just so you know that Inside the Pigskin is being broadcast around the world. The audio version of Inside the Pigskin can be heard on iHeartRadio, Apple, Spotify, Google, wherever you get your podcast. Please hit the red subscribe button on YouTube, South Florida Tribune. We're striving for 1,000 subscribers. We're getting really close. Please also comment, like, and share the broadcast. Want to be a guest? Going through the chat room is one way to do it. Or send your topic ideas to southfloridatribune@gmail.com. If you want to advertise cost efficiently, call me at 954-304-4941. We broadcast live on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube. Our website is www.southfloridatribune.com, Twitter/X @TribuneSouth. Candy Ebling is behind the scenes. My book is called Lessons from the Microphone, Tuning into the Enduring Wisdom of Visionary Leaders. It'll be coming out any day now. And also we have the show, The Motor City Mad Mouth, will debut tomorrow. I'll go back to the comments one last time before we sign off. Okay. One closing thought from Jeremy, and then we'll leave it at that. I told you C.J. Stroud-Levis were the best quarterbacks in the draft. Okay, there's your I told you so moment, Jeremy. Okay, good stuff. So there you go. So with that said, that concludes this edition of Inside the Pigskin. Okay. So I want to thank my crew of Mr. U, K.R. Lombardia, George Eichhorn, Mel Farr Jr., Bo, and Coach Bono. Thank you very much for joining us. And once again, 108 Stitches Baseball Talk is next. Good night, everybody.
Coach Bono, you live in Bradenton?
No, I live in Palm Coast.
There you go. Now you know where everybody lives. Okay.
Well, John, I'm asking.